Welcome to EPG Pathshala. We are discussing today the course on social policy. The specific module under discussion is social accountability and social audit. My name is Sohini Sengupta and I am a faculty in the School of Social Work at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. Let's start with a broad understanding about what do we mean by accountability. Accountability, in simple language, means being responsible for one's action and to give reasons for that action. Social accountability, however, is a special type of responsibility. What it talks about is the relationship of accountability between the citizens and the government. It includes a number of actions apart from voting that citizens can use to hold the state responsible for the delivery of social programs. Social audit is about ways of measuring and reporting to improve an organization's social and ethical performance. By doing these measurements and reports, we can fulfill an organization's responsibility towards society based on some ethical standards. The objective of this module, the students would learn in this module about the principles of social accountability. They would also try to understand the rationale for conducting social audit. We will also explain the scope of social audit and its application in the reform of social policy. We shall also try to understand how the process of social audit and the principles of social accountability, if upheld, can encourage the development and growth of participatory democracy. What is social accountability? We have learned in previous modules about the various norms and principles based on which social policy is made by government. We have also learned about the kind of normative ideas such as equality, justice and capability based on which social policies gain their moral force. We have learned about specific sectors and areas and ways in which social policy chooses to affect people's lives and improve their well-being. But how would any of these ideas and any of these programs, no matter how noble the goal, achieve their objectives if they are constantly being obstructed by a large number of implementation errors and implementation failures because of lack of accountability? Social accountability is an instrument that enables citizens to ensure that the social programs and policies meant for their well-being and which are theirs by right actually does the work that they're meant to do. Thus, what social accountability is an obligation and responsibility on part of the government to be answerable to the citizen for its actions. Social accountability ensures the fulfillment of democratic and human rights principles. It is essential to understand the concept of social accountability and its principles, as well as different types of methodologies that help us to do social audit in order to improve the efficiency of social programs of Government of India, including important employment guarantee programs such as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, the housing programs under IAY, the rural employment schemes, and so on. Social audit increases the effectiveness of social program, and hence they are increasingly considered as part and parcel of the delivery of social programs. They also help us to match big policy ideas with needs and priorities and rights of the rural poor. A bigger goal of social audit is to bring about local democracy, participation, and give voice to disadvantaged people. To achieve all of this, it is important to increase local capacity to do social audits. Social audit is not something that is done by bureaucracies and experts who sit in faraway places. It is instead performed by rural communities and urban poor communities who are sometimes themselves the beneficiaries of the programs that they are auditing or they are inspecting. If done well, it can tell us about the physical, financial gap between what we need for local development and what resources are available to meet these needs. Social accountability principles have been formulated by activists and grassroots organizations in simple non-theoretical terms. For example, the first one, information, the Hindi for which is jankari, The second one requires the involvement and participation of citizens, the Hindi term being bhagidari. The third being protection of citizens, the Hindi term being suraksha. The fourth being the citizens' right to be heard, the Hindi term being sunwai. The fifth being collective platform to voice your opinions and ideas, which is Janta Ka Manch. And the last being report dissemination or prasar. The basis of the principles of accountability, the basis without which a social audit process cannot happen and the broader goals of accountability cannot met, is the availability of information. All relevant information regarding social programs and public institutions, therefore, should be made accessible to local people. And how this can be done is essentially not necessarily through classrooms or sending them letters or trusting that they would read about it in newspapers or watch it in television or radios, but to display such information on the walls or in all kinds of public spaces that local people frequent. It is mandatory, in fact, to display information about social programs, including their costs, including other types of specifications, including the time period within which it would be completed, including the implementing authorities and the number of days of employment provided, for example, or any other types of benefits that have been given in public places. The information importantly has to be created in a language that is understandable to local people. The relevant information must be displayed at appropriate level of administration, which essentially means villages, sub-states, state, district level and national level. The information itself for it to be of any use to people, basically the idea is if people get this information, they're able to match it with the evidence in terms of what they have or what they have obtained from a particular social program. The idea is that once all the specification is available to them in a language that they can understand, in a place that is accessible to them, what they can then do is they can compare it with what they have obtained from such social programs and find out any gaps therein. Therefore, for that to happen, information must include details of all possible entitlements under any social program. Everyone should be able to access information equally, which essentially means that even if you have never done 12 years of schooling and you're not literate, there has to be some ways in which this information reaches to you. The information needs to be shared and available before people ask administration for it. That is, it has to be part and parcel of any social program. It should be inbuilt in the design of the program. Information sharing must be up to date and must be shared in a format that is easy to understand. Once the goal of making information about social programs in all its details accessible to people is being fulfilled, the next point is to ensure that participation takes place. And what is the nature of participation that we are looking at, and why is participation such a significant element of social audit? Involvement and participation of citizens in the process of decision making to arrive at a justifiable outcome. As far as possible, all decision making should be done in public in full view of all interested stakeholders. This essentially means that people who benefit from social programs play a very important and a very equal role in designing and managing and monitoring and evaluating the implementation of a social program. And such forms of participatory mechanisms have to be inbuilt again in the design of the program. This is important because this is considered to be the best way to ensure that the decisions that are taken regarding specific types of social program, including one of the biggest problem that has marred the implementation of social programs in our country has been the manner in which eligible beneficiaries have not been included, or the ways in which the elite members of the society has captured all the benefits, or the ways in which resources meant for a social program have been diverted and used for other purposes. The best way to ensure that most of these things don't happen is to involve the people who actually benefit from the program. Committed efforts need to be made to include marginalized groups in such situations, because even in the local community context, not everybody is equally empowered to participate in decision making. So therefore the design of social programs should not only include participatory mechanisms, the participatory mechanisms themselves should ensure that the voices of the disadvantaged within local community context get enough opportunities to emerge. Protection and voice. One of the fallouts of doing participatory social audits at grassroots level is that there is always a danger that important voices, especially if they belong to poorer people, would be submerged by more dominant forces in the locality or in the society. The other issue is if social audit processes bring out certain misdoings or certain discrepancies or certain types of corrupt practices, they can often be a threat towards the people, towards the security of persons, of people who make such disclosures. Therefore, it is important to have a secure place, an arena where free and fair discussions can take place. In the context of rural India, the Gram Sabha is supposed to provide a space where such forms of discussions about social program and its implementation and the ways in which it has worked, the ways in which it has failed, the things that it were meant to do, all of these issues are discussed. Obtain a secure place should be done through liaising with the district administration and sometimes even with the help of the police. There should be a mechanism for citizens to present their problems and grievances, and for these difficulties faced by the citizens to be heard in order that suitable actions are taken. Citizens need to be well informed and they also need to be protected so that their life is not under threat. The presence of a collective platform is meant to provide a safe and secure forum for free and fair discussion. It is important that citizens come together in such places to check corruption and ensure that the delivery that is enshrined in policy documents and laws about social programs become a reality. The findings of social audit also should be accessible to the citizens. The report that is created after putting all the evidence together about whether specific social policies are working or not working eventually needs to go back to the local people and be shared with them so that they are in agreement about the decisions and the outcomes that have emerged from particular social audit processes. There are certain general and universal steps in conducting social audit. The first is to identify and understand the state of selected social programs. The point is you need to first start with each social program has its own specificity in terms of the goals it's supposed to be fulfilling, the kind of budget that has been allocated to it, the line departments that are responsible for implementing it, and the kind of beneficiaries it's supposed to serve and with what broader goals and outcomes. It's important to identify and start looking at the status of a selected social program, and that's where the social audit process begins. Second, the second step is to compare what one finds about the delivery of that social program with the norms that are laid out in the operational guideline of such programs. And this work has to happen, as mentioned before, with full participation of citizens, not through experts, not through external experts. Verification of the findings by local community through public hearing process. Once a social program has been selected and a group of people have sat down and compared the delivery of the program with the norms and the operational guidelines as it is laid down in policy documents, what people have to undertake is a process of fact gathering or data collection in order to find empirical evidence to substantiate whether a program is working well or not. Once the evidence has been gathered and verified by comparing it with what other people know and also by discussing it in public forums, a verification process has to be undertaken by sort of cross-tabulating it with other kinds of data that one can find from other sources like documents, newspaper reports, fact-finding missions, and so on. Once this evidence has been put together, it should go to a team of people who are external to the context, basically people who are non-beneficiaries of the program, which could be independent experts who can sort of take a look at it and say that no vested interest voice has highlighted and submerged other voices. Preparation of social audit report takes place following this based on all of these fact-finding and verification and re-verification and vetting by external groups of people. Once the social audit report is prepared, it needs to be presented to an authority at the grassroots level like the Gram Sabha. Public hearing also can take place at various levels in order to take punitive, corrective and disciplinary steps following the hearing, in which people can point out the reasons and attribute the blame on people because of whom a particular social program did not succeed or succeeded partially or corruptions were found. Action taken report also has to be based on public hearing decisions. Once all of that has been done, this entire information, which social audit report is actually an information about how a social program has worked in reality, that needs to be displayed publicly and also has to feed into the management information software systems of different government line ministry websites. Let us now look at some apart from this, besides the social audit report, there are other tools of social accountability and social audit. One example of such a tool is the Citizen Report Card. Citizen Report Card, or CRC for short, is a simple and powerful tool where citizens collectively write a detailed report that reviews and gives feedback, and it can even score on the quality of services that is being provided by the government. This is increasingly a very popular means of expressing public opinion about essential services that government provides, such as drinking water or sanitation or school facilities. By giving scores, they appreciate or demand for improving the quality of the service. It's a detailed feedback that is given by citizens to departments and agencies providing the service to them. Some of the themes that citizen report cards tend to cover include access to services, whether people who are supposed to obtain a specific types of service on paper, and which perhaps on paper money has been spent on being the provisioning of that particular service, the extent to which the population group has been covered. Quality and reliability of a service. If a particular service is being provided to people, is the quality and reliability in accordance with the specifications and the operational guideline? Problems encountered by users of services and responsiveness of service providers in addressing these problems. Once citizen groups find out the various different ways in which these services are not working, they can request or they can lodge a complaint with the service providers based on citizen report cards by providing evidence that certain types of services, although they look like they're in place, actually do not deliver much benefit. Transparency, creating transparency in service provision like disclosure of quality standards and norms. Citizen groups can demand that administrations reveal to them what kind of quality they had promised and compare it with the kind of quality that has actually been delivered. Costs incurred in using a service, including hidden costs such as bribes. One good example is the supply of water. Many people in urban and rural poor communities sometimes have to purchase water from private providers, whereas the government is actually supposed to supply them with improved sources of water through a variety of means. So therefore, the costs that people incur because of using a service for which they actually should not need to provide a payment could be a different ways in which citizen report card can help to reveal corruptions associated with the delivery of services. Participatory budgeting is another kind of tool like citizen report card which enable people to create more transparency in the delivery of public goods and services. It's a democratic process where people actively engage with the government machinery and decide how to spend a part of public budget which is meant for their well-being or social security in the first place. Broadly defined, it is a mechanism or process through which citizens participate directly in different phases of budget formulation, decision making, as well as monitoring of budget execution. When we study the module on decentralization, we will talk about some concrete ways in which participatory budgeting is becoming a part and parcel of administration in the years to come. Another tool that is increasingly being made mandatory or would be made mandatory in the future is this tool called concurrent social audit. Concurrent social audit refers to audits that are conducted on a frequent and sometimes daily basis as a social program is being implemented. What it provides, therefore, is a real-time information on whether specific social programs are meeting their objectives, whether they're keeping to their budgetary constraints, whether their money promised to be spent is being spent, and whether the right kind of people are obtaining benefits. The results are later collated to obtain an understanding about the nature and outcome of the program implementation. The objective of concurrent social audit is to ensure continuous monitoring of the program. What it also encourages is alertness and vigilance amongst people, and so that they do not completely transfer the entire responsibility of social program delivery to government bureaucracies. And it also promotes instant action for malpractice and corruption. The movement or the campaign that led to a great deal of discussions about social audit and accountability and its role in making social policy work in real world was the campaign on the right to information. The idea behind the right to information campaign was that the lack of accountability, transparency and accessibility, the complicated paperwork and delays affect social welfare schemes. And because of these delays and these complexities, rights which are meant for the poor eventually do not reach them. So although the government may have large number of social programs and it has allocated a substantial portion of the budget for implementing such programs, in reality poor people are not benefiting. And the problem lies not so much in the normative goals of social policy or the objectives that the program is supposed to fulfill, but essentially because of the manner in which it is implemented, through absolute lack of transparency and through complicated paperwork which is never revealed to anybody. Right to information is extremely important as it gives opportunity to citizens to raise questions, to examine, to audit, to review and assess government activities and decisions. It improves public administration and it also upholds the Constitution of India. The RTI campaign was spearheaded by a grassroots organization in 1990s and established the need for a comprehensive legislation that would enable citizens to access basic government documents so that they can compare and verify that the objectives of social program matches up with what eventually gets delivered at the local level. It also was meant to enhance grassroots democracy by ensuring that people have the means to engage in an informed discussions about social rights and informed discussions about social programs with administration on an equal basis. The Right to Information Bill 2005 was passed by the Lok Sabha in May 11, 2005 and by the Rajya Sabha on May 12, 2005 and received the assent of the President of India in June 2005. The Act lays down the legal process by which citizens can access information held by public authorities. Since then, the Act has been used by a number of citizens for a variety of different purposes. It is an obligation of the authorities to furnish the requested information, and a grievance redressal mechanism has been put in place for those who have been denied information without reasonable cause. A related legislation which is not so well known is the Public Service Delivery Law. The Public Service Delivery Law guarantees time-bound delivery of various public services to citizens. It provides a mechanisms for punishing the public servant if they are not providing the service within a specified time frame. On failure of the officer concerned to provide the service, the citizen can approach the first appellate authority detailed in the law. The first appellate authority, after a hearing, can accept or reject the appeal by a written order stating the reasons and informing the applicant about the same. The law can order the public servant to provide the service to the applicant. The citizen can file another appeal to the second appellate authority if the first application is rejected. This act is a tool to ensure that the government department is held accountable for its actions and faces a penalty on failing to provide services to the citizen. The broader goal of laws such as the right to information and public service delivery is essentially to equalize the the difference in power that may often exist between powerful bureaucracies of literate and highly educated experts who design government programs, and between the beneficiaries who are often from socially and economically disadvantaged sections of the society with less voice and less power, and therefore less able to demand and bargain with the authorities for delivery of goods and services which are meant for them in the first place. An important authority which is responsible for the overlooking the entire social audit process, and from where the impetus for auditing of social programs are emerging, is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. In India, the Comptroller and Auditor General, or CAG, audits the government's financial performance. Every year, the CAG submits a detailed report relating to central government's accounts, spending of public money, and the performance of public sector undertakings to the President of India. This report is then presented to Parliament, where it is discussed. This ensures that the government is held responsible and is taken to task for any lapses or corrupt practices. Similarly, for the states, the CAG submits a report on the account, spending decisions, and performance of public sector units to the respective governors. This is then tabled in the respective legislatures for debate. CAG undertakes the important responsibility of investigating whether the central and state governments have followed the norms of public spending or not. Grassroots social audit process is supposed to complement this activity that takes place at a high level of government. Essentially, social audit and social accountability then is a tool for creating more empowerment and greater democracy. Rights-based approaches contribute to the empowerment of citizens in order to demand the delivery of rights and services to which they are entitled. It develops the capacity of states to fulfill the obligation to protect, respect, and promote the rights of their citizens. It strengthens participatory grassroots processes and empowers vulnerable groups. Rightly used, social audit becomes a tool of creating greater accountability, and through it leads to empowerment and democracy. To summarize the module, social audit, therefore, is a continuous and ongoing process. It involves public vigilance, and it wants the public to verify the quantity and quality of social programs at its different stages of delivery and implementation. It's an effective means to ensure transparency, participation, consultation, and accountability of public officials. The process of social audit combines participation and monitoring with the requirement of audit disciplines that financial auditors usually use to look at the viability and effectiveness of programs. Since the agency implementing the scheme cannot itself audit the scheme, therefore, it is necessary to promote people's participation in audit along with support provided by independent social audit organizations that would facilitate the process. Social audit is essentially a fact-finding process with broader normative goals of fulfilling democratic rights and justice. The work of the auditor is only to investigate by cross-verifying facts and details in the records. The auditors do not see themselves and must not see themselves as prosecutors. With this, we come to an end of the module on social audit and social accountability.